What do you think happened to your grandson?
I don't know what happened to him, for sure, else I would let you know.
What's your guess?
We begin tonight in the bizarre case of a 2-year-old boy who mysteriously vanishes at an Idaho campground.
What's the address of your emergency?
I'm actually camping in Ledwar, just outside of Ledwar.
Uh-huh.
My 2-year-old son, we can't find him.
How long has he been missing?
About an hour.
An hour?
Yeah.
Are you by water?
Yes.
Do you know which campground you're in?
It's Stone Reservoir, Timber Creek.
Stone Reservoir?
Yeah, or Timber Creek.
Hold on. We need search and rescue. Jessica? Jessica?
Yeah.
What's your son's name?
Or
Okay. What is he wearing?
he was wearing cowboy boots, a blue, pair, like pajama pants, and a camel jacket. And he's got shaggy blonde hair.
Is your husband calling too?
Like all down where we were camping at, and we can't find him at all.
Okay, we need you to stay within cell service. We've got people going on the way.
Thank you.
When officers arrived at the scene, they found all 4 adults together at the main campground area. Dior's parents, Vernal Coons and Jessica Mitchell, spoke to responding officers first. Timber Creek Campground is located in the Salmon Chalice National Forest, situated at the end of a rocky dirt road that took approximately 40 minutes to drive up from the nearest town. Ledwar was a small town located in Lemhi County, Idaho, with a population of 105 in 2010. Next to the main campground area was a creek described as being small, about 4 to 6 feet in width and about a foot deep. That creek led directly to Stone Reservoir, a couple hundred feet south of the campground. The campground was a spot that Jessica's grandfather, Robert Walton, camped at when he was younger. Robert was one of the 4 adults present at the campground alongside his caretaker granddaughter, Jessica Mitchell, and her fiancé, Vernal Coons. Jessica and Vernal were engaged to marry with their 2-year-old son, Dior Coons. When asked, both told officers that after they went down to the creek under the impression that their son was with their grandfather, Dior vanished. Also present at the campground was Robert's friend Isaac Renwad. Isaac allegedly told officers that he was down at the creek ahead of both parents before finding out about the news. Within an hour, search and rescue was present at the scene. Over the weekend, over 200 volunteers showed up to search for Dior. Searchers focused on a 2.5-mile radius around the campground, on horseback, ATVs, foot, and in the water, including the creek that the parents went to, as well as the reservoir it led to. The reservoir was shallow, but not shallow enough for a 2-year-old, but to the luck of rescuers, the reservoir and creek did not cover too much distance, as it only stretched about a mile from the reservoir. As the week came to a close, Sheriff Bowerman of the Lemhi County Sheriff's Department stated that they were pretty certain that Dior wasn't in the creek or reservoir after diving the area multiple times. Aerial searches were also conducted with a helicopter and forward-looking infrared imaging within a 3-mile radius of the Timber Creek campsite. There was no evidence recovered of Dior being present. The next day, as searchers looked for missing Dior, Jessica and Vernal gave an interview with local East Idaho News.
All right, Dior, so take us back. Was it Friday?
Yes. I'm not sure what day it is today.
Today's Monday. It was Friday.
It was Friday.
Friday at about 2:26 is when was it 2:26?
It was 2:36 when I called.
It was 2:36 is when she called, and I was in the truck hauling down to the road to try and get service because I didn't think one bar would get it. So she got very, very lucky. I was blessed that she was able to get service because I didn't want to try and risk getting halfway through my talking to the 911 and have it cut off. So I went down to where I knew I can get a little service about a half mile down the road. We searched for, after about 20 minutes and in a dead panic, not knowing where he was in such a small area and not knowing, never being there, I knew I was in trouble. So we decided to call search and rescue, and that's when I drove down. She tried getting a signal out. As soon as I got a hold of them, they told me that she was on the other line with them, and they had our location and they were on our way. They were amazing. They are amazing, and they still continue to be. Lehigh County Sheriff and Salmon Search and Rescue, you could not ask for a better group of people. And everybody was so emotionally attached to this, as anybody would be of a 2-year-old. He's pretty small for his age, but he moves pretty good, and that was our concern. He was right with us. Where it's at is, I mean, I thought it would be perfect to go camping there because it's enclosed by walls of mountains, and there's not much space around there that he could go. And our biggest concern was the creek, which was knee deep, a few feet wide, but he's a little guy. They finally, yesterday, we were able to put that to rest, and Lehigh County Sheriff, Sheriff Dave, and the rest of the sheriffs have put out that they assured me there is 100% chance that he is not anywhere in that water, around that water. They have torn that creek upside down and in and out. Divers have gone through wetsuits, along with the helicopter. That was the world's most advanced search and rescue helicopter. Sheriff Dave of Lehigh County, I just spoke with him on the phone this morning. He has got horseback riders and trackers up there right now, and very, very advanced professionals. I'll be going up and I've just come down to get any resource I can get to go back up today. What questions did you guys have?
Tell us a little bit about, first off, how are you guys holding up? I know a lot of people are praying for you.
Duper's delight is an emotional boost or thrill that some people get when they successfully cheat or deceive another person. This behavior is often triggered when the deceptive hears affirmation that their story was convincing. This does not always mean that the person is being deceptive, especially when the behavior isn't a pattern, as some may occasionally smile under traumatic reflections, specifically when thinking about the worst and best case scenarios about the subject in discussion.
Friends
and family and hoping to be strong for him.
The support around us is what's, I know, keeping me together, because if we didn't have all of our family, the minute I called my mom and she was up there in a matter of hours, and same with the rest of our family, they were just up there around us.
Luckily, a few phone calls is all it took at first. And we had, just as Sheriff Davis said in the news, there was 175 plus people up there in the grid searches, volunteers, professionals, and anybody I called. The service up there is very here, there. It's camping, you know. We're trying to hold up the best we can, but we have hope is the thing. Hope is what keeps it going. Hope is because the search is not over. Search is not done. We will find him, no matter what.
You were in the truck, so was it you that first realized, oh no, Dior's not here?
No, we both did.
No, we both did.
After 20 minutes of up and down the creek and up and around the camp, and he wasn't there, that's when I got in my pickup truck and drove down the road to try and get some service.
Yeah, especially after screaming his name. We have nicknames for him. No sound of him.
This little boy
crying.
is not. He's a goer and a mover, but he's not. He does not go away from his parents. He does not.
Yeah, he's very attached to us.
So this is very unusual.
Very, very unusual, sir.
And we didn't hear people around us. We didn't see anybody.
Have you told them about the EMT bag? That needs to be addressed.
Yeah, I know social media can be a good thing, but it can also
That's
be a bad thing.
We just don't want anything twisted.
Yeah, we don't want to twist it. So clear up any rumors that you've seen or heard.
We need to talk about that.
One thing that
we
concerned me.
We want to get to that. Most of the biggest rumors that are going around is, I mean, I have heard everything from why you would make a rumor that has to do with a 3-year-old is if you're not going to help, please don't. If it's not helpful.
Yeah,
this is a 2, almost 3-year-old we're talking about. Please help us. But I've heard everything from, I am a truck driver. I've heard everything from my company, it won't let me come home off the road to look for my son. I was there the entire time, and my employer, 4 hours after my son went missing, has been up there day and night, has not slowed down. And that one bothered me, and then they got worse and they got worse and they got worse. But that's a handful of bad with a bunch of good. The amount of support is very overwhelming, and it's good.
Are there any rumors that you've seen or anything you want to clear up, Jessica?
Somebody's at the store.
Jessica is about to give an answer that, like Vernal, does not address the EMT bag in question. The EMT bag the reporter brought up was stolen from one of the search and rescue vehicles that arrived. Some at the campground claimed it could have been stolen by the abductor, while others alleged it could have been stolen for the narcotic medications it contained.
Ledor said, it was one of the ladies that had worked at the store said,
And we haven't left the camp since 1 o'clock that afternoon, so it's just a lot of hearsay. And
was anybody camping around you?
that we don't know. I come to find I didn't know the area, and I didn't know. It's very open, but you can't see much. There's a road that goes up and along the top. We're camped underneath the reservoir, basically right below it, and you can go up above the reservoir. And I didn't even know the road was. I didn't know the road was up there. And as I traveled up there myself, I come to find out I can see everything going on in that campsite, but you can't see out. You can't see up, you can't see around, and if anybody comes to the bottom of your campground, you can't even see they are.
So they could have come into your
They
camp
could have
and
came in and you
know.
could never know it. And with the water was not a fast running, it's a creek, but it is quite loud moving through the logs and things like that. So hearing range is not all that far either, so you couldn't hear anybody coming up either.
So he was just kind of playing, and you guys were doing your thing, and then you noticed.
He was playing with.
he was
He was
my
playing with
grandfather.
Grandpa. He was getting ready for a nap. And I say it was almost. By that time, it was almost 2, and he usually takes his nap. We were just. Yeah, we decided we were going to go a little exploring. He was going to be good with Grandpa by the campfire. We weren't more than probably 50 yards away in 10 minutes. But the time I seen him to the point I figured out he was gone. And I come back up in the creek, and I actually seen there were some things down by the little minnows, and I thought he would just love. So when I come back up to get him, and I yelled over to Grandpa, where's little Dior? He immediately shocked. He says, he came up to you because it's such a small area. That's what a lot of people, they don't understand, is they just assume, how could you let your kid out of your sight? This area is pretty well blocked in, and you can see, there's no way you couldn't not see him in what we thought. And in a split second, your whole world is upside down and vanished. There's not a trace found. That's the other reason why this has been called on the news as a suspension, because it is not a suspension, but there's not a single trace of him. This child loses stuff. He's 2, almost 3. Anybody who has a child in that age range knows. They leave trails, they lose stuff,
She was
nothing.
Anything.
There's just nothing. And that's where we're starting to move, is there's a possibility that he may be with somebody, and that's what's giving us hope that it's a bad thing that he will be not with us right now, but it also means that there is a good chance that he is alive and with somebody. So we are trying every aspect we can, any aspect we can.
Is that what your gut tells you, as his
Yes.
father?
Yeah.
As his father, I believe, and I think after being up there, and a lot of people agree with me, a lot, that he is no longer up the mountain anymore. The searching advances they used and was just very thorough for miles.
After only 4 days into the search, Vernal seems convinced that the search efforts were thorough. While a perfectly reasonable observation, the likelihood that this conclusion would have come from a parent with a missing child seems unlikely, considering parents of missing children generally seem unwilling to accept information that would deter the hopes and efforts around them to search.
Ridges on one side of you and the other, and they're not very far apart. And there was all searched, all the way down to the bottom, all the way above the reservoir. The reservoir itself, a lot of people know the place. The reservoir itself isn't but maybe a few feet deep. You can see, if you're up on top, you can see the bottom of the center. If you're looking at the middle of the reservoir, you can see the bottom of it. So everything has been 100% thoroughly checked, but nobody can guarantee me 100%, so I'm going to keep looking.
We'll continue to look until he's found. We don't care how long it takes. We think as many people that have shared the story and continue to share his pictures and things like that, if somebody has him, they'll eventually
Somebody
bring
will
him
come
back.
forward wondering where this child has come from.
with some sort of
And
information.
that may not be the case, but it could be. So that's why we're trying to look at this aspect as well.
And you want people to keep sharing that
Yes.
photo?
Yes,
Keep sharing
please keep
photos,
sharing his photo. Please keep him in your mind, your hearts, and your prayers, and just keep your eyes open, please. Social media in general, in public, just keep your eyes open and keep sharing.
Tell me about the blanket.
This is his blanket. He doesn't go anywhere without his blanket, his cup, or his monkey. And all three of them were left at the campground. And
No, all three has to be with him.
Yes.
He will trip over them if he has to, but they are going with him. And this is the first time since he's been born, pretty much, that he's been without these things.
Yeah.
And that's why another reason.
Another reason why we're wondering.
Yes, because
And that's
this is the
may
blanket
seem-
that we brought him home in from the hospital. This is what comforts him any and all times.
This is an exact replica of a security blanket for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
This is his actual blanket. He does not go anywhere without it. That's our other concern of why.
Yeah.
What
And
would you, should he be out there and happen to see this? What would you say?
We're looking for you, son, and we will find you. And we love you more than anything in the world. You have a lot of people who love you and are looking for you. Buddy will find you.
we'll
Daddy
never
will
stop
find you.
looking until we get you a home.
That evening, around 200 people gathered in Idaho Falls for a candlelight vigil. The parents urged others to share photos and keep a lookout for Dior. On the 17th of July, a dive team assisted with a sonar robot confirmed that there was no signs of Dior in the reservoir or creek. On the 20th of July, after 10 days of searching, diving, and scouring the hillsides, the sheriff's office decided to redirect the investigation. Detectives began including the possibility that Dior was abducted by a stranger. Some members of the community, however, were skeptical at this theory, considering the remoteness and terrain of the campground. Another theory that Dior was abducted by a wild animal instead was becoming increasingly less likely. Not only would the abduction likely cause Dior to scream or be heard, the clothing he had on would have likely been ripped or fallen off, as Dior was described as wearing loose clothing, including a camo hoodie and oversized cowboy boots that his mother claimed were his favorite. The sheriff and his deputies also examined multiple wolf dens but found no clothing or sign that Dior had been dragged from the campsite. On July 20th, the FBI sent a team of investigators to assist the Lemhi County Sheriff's Office.
Where do you guys go from here?
Well, we wait until we get our report from the FBI. That's going to be critical. And we're still asking the public to help us if they have any information.
Let's go back to the beginning. Can you kind of give us a timeline as to when the family arrived and what proceeded?
Well, the family, from what I understand that we learned during the investigation, arrived the evening prior to July 10th. Sometime fairly close to dark on Thursday, July 9th. And then they went to town in Leadore, and upon returning, they supposedly thought they were turning their child over to their grandfather, the child's great-grandfather. They went down to the creek, which was right next to the campground, and within 10 to 15 minutes, they go up to find their child to show him some fish in the stream, and he's nowhere to be found. And grandfather assumes he's gone down to them because he was within their line of sight and wasn't too far from the campground. They started their initial search and eventually called 911 when they realized they couldn't find the child.
Where was Mr. Renwand during all of this?
He was in the same general proximity. The creek is just over the bank. He's downstream, they're upstream. They're all within probably 100 to 150 feet of each other.
Very close proximity.
Very close.
So they call 911, you guys arrive and begin searching.
Correct.
And at this point, were their vehicles searched, the tents, I guess everything out there was probably searched?
We did I think a very thorough investigation. We took 2 initial track dogs in, one of them being mine and one being Salmon Police Department. They're trained to search for people who are lost. They were given a scent. They went from the campground up to the reservoir and then back to the campground. And we searched everywhere a small child could easily hide or climb into or fall into.
And nothing.
And we found absolutely nothing.
Had Dior been in the reservoir, his body would have been recovered by now.
We believe so. Yeah, we really believe so. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Do you believe it was an abduction?
You know, personally, I think an abduction is one of the least likely events. Primarily, the information we have is Grandpa's watching the child. He tells me he looks away momentarily. When he looks back, he's gone, and he's assumed he's gone over the bank. Right where Grandpa's sitting, he's within 20 to 30 yards of the only roadway into the campground. And absolutely no one was seen at that lower campground coming or going. And when my personnel went in, nobody was seen leaving. So I think I can't completely rule it out, but it's one of the least likely things that occurred.
The sheriff makes an important note here. Given the remoteness of the campground being 45 minutes away from the nearest paved road, it was unlikely for someone to traverse the rough dirt road and kidnap Dior from the campground without making any noise by vehicle. Sheriff also claimed that no one else was seen leaving the dirt road as the police began traveling up to the campground, which led him to believe that an abduction was unlikely. However, what's important to understand is the dispatch time it took for officers to arrive at the beginning of the dirt road up to the campground. The average trip time between the sheriff's office located in Salmon, Idaho, and Leadore was approximately 40 minutes. We can estimate that the dispatch time to the beginning of the trail would have been closer to 30 minutes, as officers likely responded with urgency. Both parents first claimed that they called 911 about an hour after they realized Dior was missing, which would leave enough time for an abductor to make it down to the paved road before they called for help.
The store. Did the family go down to the store there in Leadore, and was there any surveillance captured of this boy, surveillance video?
I don't believe they have a surveillance, but we have a receipt that we've documented that they purchased certain items. They were on the receipt. The time was stamped on the receipt. And so we believe, that's where they went.
It was that Friday morning?
Yes, it was.
Okay. Do you know, did they stop any other places on their way up to Leadore?
Yeah, they stopped to get some diesel fuel.
Diesel fuel.
Yeah.
Any surveillance video at that gas
No.
station?
No.
Okay.
I'd be surprised if there's a camera anywhere in Leadore.
Well, yeah,
it's a real small
remote.
community.
Yeah.
Mm.
And as far as the lie detector test, you said you couldn't say much about.
They've all four have voluntarily taken polygraphs, and right now those have been turned over to the FBI along with the statements, and I would prefer to have them look at the reports and look at the evaluations on the polygraph to make sure we're looking at everything correctly and that we didn't miss anything.
At this point, would you feel comfortable saying something criminal happened?
No.
Okay.
No, not at all.
The family says their vehicles and cars were searched, which it sounds like in any case, that would be standard operating procedure.
Even though we searched them that night, you always second guess, did we miss something? Could he have been in another compartment? Did we not search everything? So yeah, everything's been searched at least a couple times, if not more.
Can you say anything about how Isaac ended up on the trip?
I hate to go into too many details. I mean, obviously there's a relationship between him and Grandpa. They're friends. But prior to that trip, he had never met Mom or Dad.
The news about the sheriff's interview led to an increased public response. Many internet users flocked to the many Facebook pages made around Dior's disappearance. A significant amount of information gathered and posted on these pages came from the popular site Web Sleuths, where users discuss in forums about specific cases. The public wanted to know what could have happened to Dior if he didn't run off by himself. Some on social media began pointing fingers at all four of them. One person that received some backlash at first was Isaac. Isaac was present at the campground, and according to his first interview with police, he found out about Dior missing from Robert after he saw Grandpa Robert pacing at the top of the creek embankment. On July 27th, Isaac was asked questions outside his home but refused to answer a majority regarding the case.
Finally, early Monday morning, he answered the door.
I'm Nate Eaton with East Idaho News.
Yeah, I don't have any questions. I'm sorry.
You don't have anything you want to say? All right, sorry to wake you up. We just want to see if you have anything to say about Dior missing.
I don't.
You don't?
I have no comment.
Can you tell us what happened up there?
As far as I know, he disappeared is all. So.
He just disappeared. Did he wander away? You know, or?
I'm not. I don't have anything to say about it.
A lot of people have heard from the family and everything. I know a lot of people want to hear from you and the grandfather.
Have you ever talked to the grandfather yet?
I haven't. So he was just with you and the grandfather when he wandered away?
Mm-hmm.
And then you guys thought he was with the parents?
Yeah.
And the parents came back and he was gone?
Mm-hmm.